The first race of the 2026 Formula One season was supposed to answer a few questions. Instead, it may have created a much bigger mystery. Mercedes left Melbourne with a dominant 1-2 finish, George Russell winning the Australian Grand Prix ahead of rookie teammate Kimi Antonelli. But the real conversation inside the paddock isn't just about the result. It's about how Mercedes managed to control the race in a brand new regulation era where everyone expected the field to be tightly packed. And more importantly, it's about what Lewis Hamilton may have already realized after facing his former team for the first time in a Ferrari. If you enjoyed deep technical breakdowns and real analysis of the battles shaping Formula One's new era, make sure to subscribe to F1 Unpacked and turn on notifications, because throughout the 2026 season, we'll be unpacking the engineering decisions, strategies, and innovations that decide championships. The 2026 regulations represent one of the most dramatic technical resets Formula One has introduced in decades. The power units have been redesigned with a much heavier emphasis on electrical energy. The removal of the MGUH means teams can no longer harvest exhaust energy directly to maintain turbo speed. Instead, the MGUK system now provides a much larger portion of the car's total output, and drivers must constantly balance energy deployment with battery regeneration across each lap. That fundamental change means energy management is no longer just a secondary factor. In 2026, it has become one of the primary performance differentiators between teams. And during the Australian Grand Prix, Mercedes appeared to understand that challenge better than anyone else. Qualifying already hinted that something unusual was happening. George Russell secured pole position with a strong lap, and Mercedes locked out the front row with Antonelli alongside him. That alone was a significant statement, considering how competitive Ferrari had looked throughout practice sessions. But the race itself revealed the deeper story. At the start, Ferrari showed that they were very much in the fight. Charles Leclerc launched aggressively from the second row and immediately attacked Russell into turn 1, briefly taking the lead. For several laps, the two teams traded positions, demonstrating that Ferrari's SF26 chassis is extremely competitive in terms of cornering performance. However, as the race progressed, a very clear pattern began to emerge. In the slower and medium-speed sections of the circuit, Ferrari appeared incredibly strong. The SF26 carried excellent mid-corner speed, and both Leclerc and Hamilton were able to keep pressure on the Mercedes drivers through the technical sections of the track. But the moment the cars exited those corners and accelerated onto the straights, Mercedes suddenly had the advantage, and it wasn't a small one. Data from the race suggested that Mercedes-powered cars were achieving noticeably higher speeds on the straights, sometimes reaching differences approaching 10 kilometers per hour compared to their closest rivals. In Formula One, a difference like that is enormous. But the interesting part is that this advantage doesn't appear to come purely from engine power. Several Mercedes customer teams, including McLaren and Williams, openly admitted after the race that they were unable to extract the same level of performance from the exact same power unit. McLaren team principal Andrea Stella even acknowledged that while the hardware may be identical, the factory Mercedes team seemed to be managing the system differently. And that's where the real intrigue begins. Many engineers in the paddock believe the difference lies in energy deployment strategy and software optimization rather than raw engine performance. In other words, Mercedes may not necessarily have a more powerful engine. Instead, they may simply understand how to use the electrical systems more effectively than anyone else. Under the 2026 rules, managing the battery across a lap has become incredibly complex. Teams must constantly balance how much energy they deploy on the straights with how much they recover under braking. If a driver uses too much energy early in the lap, they risk running out of deployment later. But if they harvest too aggressively, they sacrifice acceleration. Finding the perfect balance requires extremely advanced software management combined with careful calibration between the power unit and the chassis. And right now, Mercedes appear to have that balance almost perfectly optimized. But while Mercedes may have the advantage in energy deployment, Ferrari revealed something equally important in Australia. Their car might have the strongest chassis on the grid.
Multiple drivers commented after the race that the Ferrari looked extremely fast through the corners. Lando Norris specifically pointed out that the SF26 appeared to carry more speed through technical sections than almost any other car. That observation was backed up by sector data from a race. Ferrari consistently gained time through slow and medium-speed corners, where mechanical grip, suspension setup, and aerodynamic efficiency play the biggest role. This suggests Ferrari's design philosophy for the SF26 may be centered around maximizing traction and cornering stability, rather than pure straight-line speed.
And that philosophy makes sense when you consider the challenges of the 2026 regulations. With the new hybrid systems constantly altering throttle response, maintaining a stable rear platform through corners becomes incredibly valuable. If the car is predictable during acceleration phases, drivers can apply throttle earlier and maintain higher corner exit speeds. Ferrari appears to have built their entire chassis around that concept. However, the trade-off is clear. When the cars reach long straights, the Mercedes advantage in energy deployment becomes extremely difficult to overcome. Russell and Antonelli were able to accelerate away from Ferrari repeatedly during the race simply by deploying more electrical power at the right moments. This dynamic could end up defining the entire 2026 championship battle. On one side, Mercedes seems to have mastered the hybrid power unit and energy management systems. On the other side, Ferrari appears to have built a car with exceptional mechanical balance and cornering performance. If both teams continue developing in those directions, the season could turn into a fascinating engineering duel between two completely different philosophies. Another factor that could shape that battle is development. Ferrari team principal Fred Vasseur has already confirmed that several upgrades are planned for the early part of the season. Some of these updates are expected to focus on aerodynamic refinements, while others may target improvements in energy deployment and power unit efficiency. If Ferrari can close even part of the straight-line performance gap while maintaining their current cornering advantage, they could quickly become serious title contenders. And that brings us to the next major test of the season, the Chinese Grand Prix in Shanghai. Shanghai presents a very different challenge compared to Melbourne. The circuit features a mixture of tight technical corners and one of the longest straights on the Formula One calendar, stretching more than a kilometer down the back section of the track. That combination will once again test both aspects of the Mercedes-Ferrari battle. The long straight will give Mercedes an opportunity to demonstrate their energy deployment advantage once again. But the technical first sector and traction-heavy corners could allow Ferrari to fight back using their superior chassis balance. In many ways, Shanghai may give us a much clearer picture of the true competitive order in this new era of Formula One. At the same time, the entire grid is still learning how to extract performance from these new regulations. Teams are gathering data, analyzing energy usage patterns, and refining their strategies with every race weekend. That means the development race is already underway. Red Bull and McLaren, two teams that have dominated different phases of the previous regulation era, are still trying to fully understand the new hybrid systems and optimize their packages. Both teams have the resources and engineering talent to close the gap quickly, but for now, Mercedes holds the early advantage. And perhaps no one understands that better than Lewis Hamilton. After spending more than a decade with the Silver Arrows, Hamilton knows exactly how the Mercedes organization approaches technical development. Seeing his former team dominate the opening race of a new regulation era may have confirmed something he likely suspected during winter testing. Mercedes may have started the 2026 era one step ahead. That doesn't mean the championship is decided, far from it. Formula One seasons are long, development is relentless, and advantages that look decisive early in the year can disappear quickly as teams bring upgrades. But the Australian Grand Prix has already revealed something important. Mercedes appear to have mastered the energy side of the new regulations. Ferrari appear to have built one of the most balanced chassis on the grid. And the battle between those two strengths could shape the entire story of the 2026 Formula One season.
If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more deep analysis of the engineering battles, strategy decisions, and championship storylines shaping Formula One's new era, make sure to subscribe to F1 Unpacked and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video. Because if the Australian Grand Prix showed us anything, it's that the 2026 season is not just a fight between drivers, it's a battle of ideas, engineering philosophies, and technological innovation. And this battle is only just beginning.